Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava arhang samma sambuddho vidyacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusanang buddho bhagavati. Namo tassa samma sambuddhassa. Ye cha buddha athita cha ye cha buddha anagata pachuppanna cha ye buddha ahang vandami sabbada natti me saranang ganyang buddho me saranang varang yetena satcha vajjena hotu me jaya mangalam uttamangena vandehang padapansu varuttamang buddheyo kalito doso buddho kamatu tang mama buddhang yava nibbana pariyantang saranang gacchami. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Vapanayako Pachattang Veditabbo Vinnuhiti Namo Tassaniyanika Sadammasa Echa Dhamma Athita Cha Echa Dhamma Anagata Pachuppanna Cha Ye Dhamma Ahang Vandami Sabbada Nati Me Saranang Ganyang Dhammo Me Saranang Varang Yetena Satcha Vajjena Hotu Me Jaya Mangalang Uttamangena vandehang dhamman chati viduttamang dhammeyo kalito doso dhammo kamatu tang mama dhammang yava nibbana pariyantang saranang gacchami. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sango ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sango nyaya patipanno bhagavato savaka sango Samichi patipanno bhagavato savaka sango yadidang chattari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala yesa bhagavato savaka sango ahuneyo pahuneyo dakkineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punyaketang lokasati. Namo tassa atta arya puggala mahasangasa Echa sangha atita cha echa sangha anagata pachuppanna cha ye sangha ahang vandami sabbada natti me saranang sango me saranang varang yetena satcha vajjena hotu me jaya mangalam uttamangena vandehang sanghan chati viduttamang sangeyo kalito doso sango kamatu tang mama sanghang yava nibbana pariyantang saranang gacchami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today's topic is on, like, say, the fundamental of human existence, not just human existence, any being's existence. As I used to say in many of my talks, like all beings are behind happiness, whether it is human being or animals or divine beings or any being for that matter. They are in pursuit of happiness, but unfortunately, not knowing where is happiness, we got stuck in different kinds of suffering. So our pursuit is happiness. We end up in suffering. That's why this buddhi, this knowledge of happiness, understanding of happiness, kinds of happiness, the complete range of happiness, the complete canvas of happiness, one should be aware. That's what is actually my main intention in almost all of my Dhamma talks, to introduce this complete canvas of happiness so that we can understand the ins and outs of happiness, point number one. Point number two, we can understand where we are in this pyramid of happiness, or in this slab of happiness, in this range of happiness, where we are and where we have to go next. That idea one should have. Otherwise, if that knowledge, that wisdom, that idea, if we lack, then again and again we fall into the trap of ignorance and trap of happiness, trap of not deriving happiness, trap of suffering. Then we can't accomplish the purpose of life. Forget about purpose of life. We can't accomplish the very aspiration of the life, that is happiness. looking for happiness, falling into suffering, looking for happiness, falling into suffering. This kind of ignorance trap, this kind of vicious cycle we end up. If you don't know this complete canvas of happiness, if you don't know how to progress in this canvas, in this gradation, in this step-by-step journey of happiness, if you don't know how to progress, then this is the problem. And to handle this problem of this falling into this vicious trap of suffering, so one should know from different perspectives, different angles, from different, of course, finally I come to this right view perspective of happiness that gives the complete canvas of happiness, that gives the complete wide and complete, of course, the range of happiness. Then identifying oneself where we are, where I am, and accordingly progress in this journey of happiness or in this path of happiness. That is the sole purpose of human beings. That's where I am completely, that is what is that core purpose, that's where I am hitting in all my Dhamma. That's what is the mission of CRVM. To make people understand, to make oneself understand, to make myself understand this complete range of happiness and to progress successively with complete clarity in this path of happiness. That is the idea. So now coming into today's topic, that is the 4 kinds of happiness. This is the right view approach. And of course, there are different kinds of people, as I am telling you, each and every one of us are aspiring to become happy each and every day, each and every moment for that matter. And we define happiness in our own ways. We classify happiness in our own ways. That also we will see, because we will get some idea about this world, about this happiness that these different kinds of people in this world, they are talking about, different religions, different views, different philosophers, different psychologists, or even the common people, how they define, how they understand, how they classify happiness. But also we'll see for a few minutes. And then we will take up the right view happiness. Generally, the right view happiness can be classified into 4 categories, 4 types, 4 kinds. And what are those 4 kinds of happiness? And how we can understand them with different perspectives from different dimensions, and how we progress from the lower levels of happiness to higher levels of happiness in this 4 kinds of right view happiness. That also we will see in today's topic. Of course, happiness is a very, very wide topic. But now we will stick on to, we confine ourselves to this 4 kinds of happiness. And of course, as an introduction, we will see the different versions of happiness, different kinds of classification of happiness by other people, by general people, or by some psychologists or philosophers, or some wise people in this worldly life. And also different religions, how the different religions define and explain happiness, and how to achieve happiness, and what are their classification of happiness. Those things also we will see for a few minutes, and then we will discuss about our topic, that is our core topic, that is the right view happiness, the 4 kinds of right view happiness also we will discuss. Coming to this general perception about happiness, how people perceive about happiness. Generally, it is essential happiness that is majority of the people, they consider it as happiness. Like if we get some good food, say if we want to enjoy some good weather, or good place, or good company, or good any essential thing, good taste, or good music, or good smell. Something like that, which is bodily and which is sensual. If those things are met, those basic needs of the body and the senses, if they are met, then we say we are happy. Because still in the world, though the whole world is like progressing materialistically, but still, at least we can say 50% of the world, they are in grave need of this bodily requirements, bodily pleasures, sense pleasures. So in that way, this kind of basic requirements of the body are fulfilled, and if the senses are excited in different ways, that is what is the next step. This American culture or this materialistic culture, they are not just satisfying, they are not just happy by satisfying the essential requirements, essential needs. They want to excite these essential things. That's why this intoxication, these drugs, and all these things. So many kinds of excitement. Even with this foods and this consumerism, it's also because of we want to excite our senses so that we can derive more happiness. That is what is the version of vast majority of the people about happiness. And that is what generally people say the American culture. Of course, whole world is influenced by this American culture now. The exciting the senses are hyping the materialistic pleasure as the highest pleasure. That's what is seen, of course, and that is one of the versions of happiness. And some other people, they think about some other, they go a little deep and they talk about the mental happiness, the happiness that we can derive with our thinking, with our, and of course, I will tell you, generally people will say the bodily happiness, the sensual happiness, of course, which is again related to the body only, and sensual excitement or bodily excitement. This is one kind of happiness. And mental happiness, mental excitement, mental, say, satisfaction, mental peace. This is our mental or the ego excitement, ego satisfaction, which is again, of course, somebody prizes you, somebody appreciates you, somebody promotes you, somebody recognizes you, somebody gives you importance, that I-centered happiness, I-ness and minus-centered happiness. That also gives a lot of happiness. And that is one kind of happiness. Generally, people think on these two lines. The body-centered, sensual, sense-centered happiness. The second one is the I-centered, ego-centered or recognition, I-ness, minus-centered happiness. If these two things are going on in a progressive way, then we say our life has got fulfillment and we are progressing in happiness. That's what is the general perception about happiness all over the world, in all cultures, across all communities, all cultures, all civilizations. But different wise people define these kind of happinesses in their own ways. Some people, they just stretch it into three kinds of happiness. Some people stretch these two, the basic two, into even 7 types, 5 types of happiness. Some people go little deep. They talk about the happiness hereafter and how this happiness hereafter, that means after this life, is related to the happiness in this life, and happiness in this life, how it's related to the happiness hereafter. Those things also, some people, which again comes under the domain of the religion, they talk about those things. But vast majority of the people, they talk about only these two major kinds of happiness, that is the sense-centered, body-centered happiness and the ego-centered, I-ness, minus-centered happiness. These are the two major kinds of happiness. Now coming to these a little more people who are working on this happiness only, like the philosophers, psychologists, how they define happiness, how they classify happiness, that we will see. See, these some philosophers, they classify happiness not just two. One more addition also, they will make the 3 kinds of happiness. So they are like pleasure, passion, purpose. The happiness of pleasure, the pleasant life, the pleasure-based happiness, and then passion-based happiness, the engaged life. The life is engaged in some passion. That is passion-based happiness. And the third one is purpose. It is not just passion. It is the purpose behind the passion. That is also understood, and based on that purpose, some people, they design their life, they work, they invest in their life based on that purpose. That gives a higher happiness in that way. some people, some psychologists classify this happiness into three types. Like one is the simply pleasure-based happiness, like as I told you, the sense-based happiness, essential excitement. It's basic. When body is there, senses are there. When body and senses are there, they have to be satiated. Hmm? So that kind of basic instinct of the body and the senses, if that is satiated, if that is excited, and if that is fulfilled, that is what is called the pleasure-based happiness. And the second one is passion-based. To achieve these pleasures, you passionately have to involve in some giving, in some working. That some people know, that's why they invest their time in passionately giving something, working for something. And of course, thereby they get wealth or whatever useful things in return, and they invest that wealth into this pleasure only again, on this pleasures only. Now there, of course, the I-ness and minus based happiness also they achieve in this passion-based happiness. And some people go a little more deep and they see the purpose of life. They go a little more deep, helping, kindness, compassion, all these things they bring into, which gives, according to their classification, which gives much more higher happiness, some kind of contentment, some kind of meaning to the life. That kind of meaning to the life is brought with having a purpose in the life, having this kind of altruistic nature. So that is the third kind of happiness. In that way, some psychologists classify happiness into these three things. That is one, the first one is your pleasure-based happiness, the passion-based happiness, and the purpose-based happiness. And the next one, next way of classifying the happiness is, so in between this pleasure-based happiness and the passion-based happiness, some people say the happiness, or of course you can say in the passion-based happiness itself, some people seek happiness by comparison, by judgment, by comparison. That's what they do in this finding out the happy countries in the world. The relativity. So I'm happy because I'm having good life, good health system here, good education here in this my country. When compared to other country, I'm not. I'm better. In that way, if you compare and if you feel satisfied and if you don't feel satisfied, that kind of comparison and that kind of judgment based on comparison also will make a person to decide whether he is happy or not. So that kind of judgment-based happiness also some people bring in, of course, which is highly true, absolutely true, but we can't measure it actually. How the world is judging about the happiness, we can't measure it. So that is the reason why this judgment-based happiness also you can put in this passion-based happiness. In that way, you can just simply make it three kinds of happiness only. That is the pleasure-based happiness, passion-based happiness, where this comparison and judgment is also included, and then the purpose-based happiness. So in that way, almost all psychologists, they agree with this kind of classification of happiness. Okay, this is what is the psychological perspective of happiness. Of course, some people they just classify some psychologists based on say these 7 kinds of happiness like joy, excitement, gratitude, pride, optimism, contentment, love. These are the 7 kinds of happiness. So joy, whether it is by pleasure or something. Excitement, it is like again exciting the senses with some lot of expectations to the senses or for the ego. So that is one kind of happiness. Then gratitude, having that kind of contentment. When gratitude is there, contentment will be there. So that also gives one kind of happiness. And the pride, that I-ness and minus and that self-esteem also gives happiness. My necessity, my importance, that they identify, and based on that they develop some kind of pride and self-esteem. That also gives happiness. In that way, that they classify that also as one of the kinds of happiness. Optimism, having hope and optimism about the life and the future, that also gives happiness. That is one kind of happiness. Then overall contentment that you achieve through balancing everything, balancing the pleasures, balancing your ego, balancing your egoistic achievements, balancing your I-ness and minus, balancing your pride with the pleasures, which gives overall contentment. That also is one kind of happiness. When you have balance and contentment, then also it is one kind of happiness. And love, love, care, concern, getting cared, getting say getting love, giving love. That means caring and being cared. Feeling that social life again with some balance. And this that also gives one kind of happiness. That way, some psychologists they classify the happiness under these 7 headings, 7 categories. That is your joy, excitement, gratitude, pride, optimism, contentment, and love. Of course, this is like again. Of course, there is many generally people will appreciate all these 7 kinds of happiness, and also psychologists they agree with this. Because of that, many psychologists also they agree with these 7 kinds of happiness, where the general approval is also there. Okay, so in that way, the 7 kinds of happiness and the 3 kinds of happiness we have seen with regard to the psychologists. Now, some deeper, say, wise people who are not just psychologists, who are philosophers also, like Aristotle and so many other, Plato, and so many other people also they classify that's happiness. They have their own way of classifying happiness. Now, of course, the Western world, Western psychology, Western wise people, philosophers, they quote or they refer or they follow these ancient philosophers of the West, like this Aristotle, Plato, and all these people. How they classify? They classify again. Generally, many Western philosophers and even the psychologists also, the ancient philosophers, 2 kinds of classification, 2 kinds of happiness. One is the hedonic happiness, and the other one is eudaimonic happiness. It is again simple, of course. The terms are like they're like from the Greek and Latin. They have some. They look little different from our general usage of English words. Hedonic means like the sensual, the pleasure, the worldly pleasure. That is hedonism or hedonia. So hedonic happiness means the worldly pleasures, the pleasure that you derive from the worldly things, from the senses, from the stimuli of the nature of the world. So that is what is the hedonic happiness. And they say American culture is completely dominated by this hedonic happiness, and that's like it is percolating into the whole world, already percolated. So that's why, of course, vast majority of the world is under the influence of this hedonic happiness. And the second one is eudaimonic happiness, where there is a purpose in the life, there is a based on the purpose, there is passionate involvement in the life, engagement in the life. So that kind of purpose and passion is also there. Then that is the eudaimonic happiness. That's all. The 3 that we discussed: purpose, passion, and pleasure. They are now divided into only 2. That is hedonic happiness and the eudaimonic happiness by this ancient philosopher. The hedonic happiness is nothing but the pleasure happiness that we have discussed, and the eudaimonic happiness is the passion happiness, the purpose-oriented happiness. These 2 things we can classify them under this eudaimonic happiness. So in that way, so we can make these 3 kinds of happiness into 2 kinds of happiness. That is hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness. And again, this Aristotle and Plato they classify the happiness into 4 kinds. So what are these 4 kinds of happiness? That also we can see. And beyond these 3, they included what is called the higher, the freedom also they included to some extent. And they included what is called the sublime, the sublimity in the happiness. That sublimeness. So if you go a little deep into all these kinds of happinesses and go a little, say, you can try to explore the purpose hereafter also. And slightly they start inclining towards the religious versions of happiness also. These Aristotle, Plato, though they are philosophers, though they are absolutely about the world, but they're still bothered about, still concerned about the happiness, the sublime happiness, where one can derive by oneself, like say completely involved in some, if say in some music, some musicians, great musicians, they derive happiness in being with that music itself. Great painters, they derive the absolute, that divine happiness or that complete involvement happiness in the painting itself. In that way, they're not bothered about what they get from the world, or not bothered about the sensual happiness, not bothered about the purpose also in the life. There's very involvement in that particular art or skill or work. That is what is called the sublime happiness. That also they bring into these great philosophers like Aristotle and all. So in that way, these people, they classify this sublime aspect also as the 4th one. And of course, they give the different terminology, especially this Aristotle and all, where they talk about these 4 kinds of happiness as Letus and Felix and Beatitudo, sublime Beatitudo. They're nothing but the first 3 are nothing but the first 3 that we discussed. The pleasure, the passion, and the purpose. That is the first 3. But that here the terminology, the names are different. So instead of pleasure, they are talking about this Greek word. Maybe it is Greek word, Greek or Latin word. Leatus, L-A-E-T-U-S. That is the materialistic happiness, the happiness that you gain from the material objects, the essential happiness. The Felix is the second one. That is your passionate, your ego satisfaction, ego gratification, happiness from comparison, happiness from say this I-ness and minus. That kind of happiness is Felix. It's called F-E-L-I-X, Felix. It is Aristotle's classification of happiness into 4 kinds. First one is Letus, materialistic happiness. The second one is Felix, the ego satisfaction, ego gratification happiness. The third one is Beatitudo, doing good for others, purpose-based happiness. Compassion, kindness, purpose-based happiness. That is the Beatitudo. It's called B-A-T-I-T-U-D-O, Beatitudo happiness. That is purpose. So common, these 3 things are there. The 3 P's are there that we can easily remember. What is the first one? Pleasure. Second one is passion. Third one is purpose. So this pleasure, passion, purpose. Here Aristotle is giving different names. Not just Aristotle, but that lineage, his disciples and all. Plato and all those people, they completely agree with this kind of classification. So, but the names here are Letus is your materialistic happiness, that is pleasure. Felix is your ego gratification happiness, that is passion. And Beatitudo is your purpose, the meaning of life, like having concern to the people around you through kindness, through compassion, through service, through care. So that kind of happiness from doing good to others, that is what is called Beatitudo, which is purpose-based happiness. These are the 3 kinds of happiness, which are almost same that we discussed, but names, the terminology is different. And the 4th one is the sublime beatitude. The sublime beatitude is the one that I was telling you, where one can derive with a very involvement. Like this, as I was telling you, a painter, he is completely involved in this painting only. hours and hours, days and days, he won't mind in doing that same thing, same work of painting. And he will be deriving a lot of pleasure, happiness, joy, everything, peace, contentment, the happiness from that very work of being involved in that. And that is what is called sublime beatitude. So in that way, so this sublime beatitude, that is, for them it is of course the perfect happiness, the ultimate happiness according to these people, where one is involved completely in some skill, in some art, in some talent, in some work. That is what is called the sublime beatitude, and that is what is the fourth kind of happiness. So these are the four kinds of happiness according to these philosophers, which is of course very much the Western world, and we can also agree with that. How, especially in this material world, in this world, human world, so this kind of happiness is also very much there, and very many people they aspire for that kind of happiness also. That is sublime beatitude. Before that beatitude, that is like having some compassion, care, concern, service to the people around you, and then deriving some kind of true happiness from that pure mind, pure heart, pure feelings. That is a beatitude. And before that, Felix is that ego gratification, passionate, through having some passionate commitment to some work, to giving some meaning to life with that passionate work, with that I-ness, minus, with identification, with comparison, with the judgment, deriving some kind of ego gratification. That is the second one, Felix. And the first one is the pleasure, the materialistic pleasure. That materialistic pleasure, happiness. So that is the first one that we discussed. Latus, 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 materialistic happiness. So in that way, in general, this materialistic essential happiness and the egocentric happiness, slowly we are extending them. We are making these 2 into 3, adding the purpose also, and again we are adding this sublime beatitude, like complete involvement in anything that we are doing. That is the fourth kind of happiness that we have added, and we have seen how this world is involved in this kind of fourth kind of happiness also. So in that way, we can understand this, how the people and the world and the philosophers and the wise people in this world have classified the happiness. Non-religious, the non-religious classification of happiness. And again, many psychologists, they say happiness set point. So 50% of our happiness is set with our very birth itself, in our genes itself, in our genetics itself, in our our genetics only determine 50% of our happiness. It's called set point. The happiness set point is 50% with our genetics, and another 10% our circumstances will decide our happiness. So that 60% is out of our control. Remaining 40% with our effort, with our intelligence, with our smartness, with our involvement, understanding, we can derive our happiness. So only 40% happiness set point is in our hand, and remaining 60% is already, it is set, already it is uncontrolled. So in that way, they define the set point also. So whatever happiness we are getting, we are involving, it's very difficult to change from that state to higher state of happiness, because 60% is determined. And that's what we in the Eastern philosophies we say karma or kamma. So our kamma will determine 60% of our happiness. Remaining 40% is in our hands. That is good enough. 60-40 is also good enough. With our wisdom, with our skillfulness, with our intelligence, with our hard work, with our faith, with our understanding, we can progress with that 40% happiness set point also. So whatever may be the kind of happiness that we are going through, 60% is already determined, it's okay, but still 40% is in our hands. So that's what is even the Western philosophers, psychologists also, they agree with this, what you call the karma of the Eastern, say, wise people. Now, coming to the happiness in the different religions, how different religions they discuss, they talk about happiness. All these monotheistic religions like Islam and Christianity, and even I think maybe Judaism, all these monotheistic religions, they completely, the belief gives a complete lot of satisfaction, lot of peace, lot of contentment, lot of confidence and courage to face the ups and downs of the life. Whatever, that's why they completely insist on believing one universal savior, God, or the representative of the God. Completely believing, that complete belief, complete faith. It will not wobble you. It will not wobble you. It will make you completely confident to face the ups and downs in the life. Many a times we have to go through a lot of suffering, lot of hardship, lot of failures, lot of dangers, a lot of oppressions. At that time, completely have faith and something or some some idea or some quality or some purpose, some savior, then that very faith will help you to tolerate, to be patient, to be to tolerate the hardship. And because of that reason, the monotheistic religions, they appealed vast majority of the people of the world. And that very faith is the key to your inner happiness. That's what is the version of these religions, Islam or Christianity, these religions, Abrahamic or monotheistic religions. And here again, of course, they classify the happiness here on the earth and the happiness hereafter. And if you have this faith, complete faith, and according to the faith you lead your life, you will be happy here and you will be happy hereafter also, because they are mutually interdependent. If you have a happy life here, hereafter also you will be happy. And again, of course, the core cause for happiness is the faith in the in that teacher, in that founder of that religion. That's what is the key. In that way, they promote those that kind of happiness, the faith-based happiness in those religions. Believers' close relation with the God, that is only the key for your happiness here, for your happiness hereafter. That's what even in Christianity and also they believe, and that's where their happiness lies. That complete belief, complete faith in the Gospels or in the scriptures, in their scriptures, or in their gods, or in their representatives of the gods. How much they believe, that much they will be happy here also and hereafter also. That's what is their classification or understanding of happiness. And in Hinduism and in Eastern philosophies, especially in Hinduism, the happiness is based on four things. That's how one should design one's life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So once you understand the universal laws of coherence, of truth, of coherence, the laws of nature, and accordingly, if you lead your life, like the life of truth, life of non-violence, life of universal love, that is what is dharma. Based on those laws of dharma, if you lead your life, then you will be happy. Then that leads to artha, the worldly wealth, worldly materialistic wealth you will get, and that also will help you to satiate your physical needs, your sensual needs. That is what is artha. Dharma, if you follow the dharma, the nature's laws of coherence, of balance. Yeah, dharma means coherence and balance. You with others, you with the nature. If that kind of understanding is there, and based on that, you design your life, your thinking, your actions, your livelihood, based on that laws of nature, laws of dharma. If you design based on that universal love, based on that universal concern, care, harmony, balance, coherence, if you design your life, then that itself will give you happiness. That is the happiness of dharma. And based on that, if you start getting artha, that is the happiness of materialistic pleasures, the material, the happiness, pleasures. And again, when you start getting these materialistic pleasures, then kama, the sensual pleasures, the pleasures of the body, all these five senses, the excitements, the happiness, the pleasures through the five senses. That is what is kama, the happiness of the sensual excitement, sensual gratification that we will get. And then moksha. The last one is moksha also. This is very much there, the pleasure of the happiness of moksha also. In almost all Hindu versions, Hindu schools, they agree with this four kinds of happiness: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. The happiness of the righteous living, that is dharma. The happiness of materialistic wealth and materialistic, of course, in this artha, even this ego gratification also will come. Your power, your position, your wealth, all these things will come under this artha, the happiness of artha, the happiness of wealth and power. It is not just wealth, it is wealth and power also. The happiness of wealth and power is artha. The happiness of sensual gratification, sensual satisfaction, sensual excitement is kama. And the happiness of freedom is moksha. Happiness of moksha is happiness of freedom. So that's what is the Hindu way of looking at the four kinds of happiness. Okay. Now coming into this right view happiness, the four kinds of right view happiness. The four kinds of happiness according to right view, as we have seen, maybe I might have told in some of my Dhamma talks also, but I don't remember. The four kinds of right view happiness are, it's like very like say, with a wider spectrum we are looking at happiness, this right view. The first one is human happiness. So all kinds of this happiness that all these people, all the religious people, all these philosophers, they talk about, they all come under this human happiness. Four kinds of happiness of pleasure, passion, purpose, sublime beatitude, that is completely involving in some skill or in some talent, in some work. All these philosophers, Aristotle and all, they talk about. And these religious people, they talk about the complete faith in something and complete surrendering, and then thereby your ability to tolerate the hardships. That also, that kind of happiness also. And this dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Of course, moksha is not in what dharma, artha, kama that Hindus are talking about. And of course, moksha also, there is some kind of freedom that they are talking about. So all those things that all these religions and all these philosophers and all the common perception, all these things come under in this first kind of happiness that we are talking about, in this right view happiness. That is the first kind of right view happiness is the human happiness that we are talking about. All these different kinds of happiness that we discussed all till now, it comes under this human happiness, the righteousness happiness. All these things, they come under this human happiness. And the second kind of happiness is the divine happiness. So when you evolve your mind, when you sensitize your mind, when you sharpen your mind, when you purify your mind, then you enter into another plane of happiness. That is what is called the divine happiness. That's what, of course, many basic punyas that Buddha has suggested. Correctly understanding those punyas and punyakriyas, and you follow. And then, in addition to deriving human happiness, you will start deriving the divine happiness also to some extent. And after your death, there are higher chances of definitely achieving that divine happiness, transcending the human happiness, and one can derive the divine happiness. And even in this very life itself, when you practice a few rules and few punyakriyas, meritorious actions, then one can achieve what is called a divine happiness. That is the second kind of happiness. And the third kind of happiness is Brahmic happiness. And again, if you, for a much more refined actions like meditations and all, and if you transcend even this divine happiness also, and you evolve your mind, and if you sensitize your mind to a higher level, then you achieve what is called this Brahmic happiness. In this very life, through meditativeness, through meditations, through right view meditations, one can definitely achieve this Brahmic happiness also. And of course, through right view meditations, one can achieve the Brahmic happiness also. And the last one is, the last kind of happiness is the Nibbanic happiness. So that is like absolute freedom from this taking this body and mind, completely transcending the body and mind, completely transcending all the subtleties of the mind, even the Brahmic subtleties, Brahmic subtle mind also you transcend, where you are deriving very, very refined happiness. That refined happiness also you transcend, and you achieve what is called the ultimate liberating happiness, or the happiness of freedom, happiness of absolute emancipation. That is what is called the Nibbanic happiness. So these are the four kinds of happiness according to right view. Buddha, of course, always he talks about there is dukkha in all levels of existence, human existence, divine existence, even in the Brahmic existence. Dukkha is inherent. That's what is his very first and very powerful proclamation. When you carry body and mind, however refined is your body, however refined is your mind, even the body and mind of the Brahmas also, though they are highly refined, but still they carry suffering. And one has to transcend that also. Sankittena panchupadana kanda dukkha. In brief, when you carry the body and mind, however subtle it is, however refined it is, that very carrying of this body and mind itself at any plane of existence, even at the plane of Brahmas also, it is a burden and it is suffering. That's why his very mission, of course, all Buddhas, not just our Gautama Buddha, all Buddhas who, of course, imbibed the right view in each and every word they speak, they inspire people to go through, transcend all these kinds of basic happinesses and to work for Nibbanic happiness, very authoritatively. That's what they do, they inspire. But of course, they talk about the middle path also. For a person who is suffering from a lot of hunger, if you talk to him about meditation, about mindfulness, about liberation, about Nibbana, about Brahmic happiness and all, it will be like it is nonsense. It is absolute insensitivity, it's absolute cruelty. Once actually one farmer, he was quite an intelligent, wise farmer, but he lost his oxen. Oxen, the ox bullocks. And he was searching to find out his oxen. And he was very tired, without food. And he came to monastery, Buddha's monastery. And some people thought he came to learn, to get preaching from the Buddha and from the monks. Buddha understood that this is not the time for him to get the Dhamma about liberation, about Nibbana, and now the time is for him to get some food. He is very tired. So he asked people to give him some food. And after eating, only he came to the senses. Then he could listen to Dhamma, and because he is intelligent and he could understand and comprehend Four Noble Truths and comprehend Dhamma, he became Swatapanna, I think. I don't exactly correctly remember. So in that way, Buddha understands the middle path also, the other needs, the other happinesses also the people are looking for. That also one should satisfy. But also one should they should achieve it, they should get it, and there should be a balance in all kinds of happiness, potential happiness, ego happiness. If you're completely depressed, nobody recognizes, no importance at all. If your life is completely, you feel that great pity for yourself, then you will not get the confidence to work for Nibbana. Sometimes the great failures in the life also, it will completely change your perception towards life and you may work for Nibbana. That is also possible. But for vast majority of the people, they should go through all these stages of happiness. For vast majority of the people. That also Buddha knew, and that's why he brought in this concept of middle path, the moderation. Not absolutely focusing on Nibbanic happiness, not absolutely asking people to work on mindfulness, mind stillness, mind concentration, mind liberation. No. When there is body, when there is bodily requirements, one should go through that kind of though they are like inferior happiness, but one should go through those inferior happiness also. That is what is called middle path. So in that way, Buddha talks about dukkha in all levels of say existence. But at the same time, he talks about middle path also. When you are into one level of existence, so whatever is required in that particular existence, in that particular situation, like in this case of farmer, so one should satiate those things. Then only the mind will be ready for the higher happiness. So in that way, though these four kinds of happiness, Buddha always emphasizes on the ultimate, that is Nibbanic happiness only. But he understands about the diversity of the human requirements, human desires, human abilities, human limitations. And accordingly, he gives this middle path approach also. Accordingly, he makes people to satiate their essential things, their ego satisfaction, and to derive that kind of particular happiness, the human happiness. And then he will give the picture of divine happiness by performing wholesome meritorious actions. And he will give the picture of Brahmic happiness by practicing the rightful meditations. And again, how to transcend even this Brahmic happiness by developing the insight meditations, and how to liberate completely the mind and to achieve the Nibbanic happiness. So again, his mission is to give the complete picture of happiness. That's why there's something called Anupubbikata, gradual discourses. Almost in all his discourses are gradual discourses. He talks from faith. He talks about having faith in this complete range, the complete knowledge of Buddha, and surrendering to it, so that the mind will open up, ears will open to what he is saying, and the heart also will open up. The ego will dissipate, will come down, and they're ready to listen by having faith. And then Dhanakatha, your ability to give and give up, that he used to inspire the people by telling about the Dhanakatha. Motivation to give and give up, so that gives some kind of satisfaction, that passion satisfaction that we were talking about. It's not just seeking for pleasure. One should passionately learn to give and work also. Shilakata, having concern for the people around you by practicing Shila, the morality. And then he talks about Four Noble Truths and all. Meditation, Four Noble Truths and liberation. The complete package, the complete range of happiness. Starting from the human happiness to divine happiness to Brahmic happiness to Nibbanic happiness. The complete picture he used to give, and people can understand and comprehend and see where they are. And accordingly, they can work to go to the next step, and then understand and liberate themselves and achieve nibbanic happiness also. And that's what is the right view approach towards happiness, and that's what is these 4 kinds of happiness in the right view approach. There's something called subhuman happiness also, like the animals and other beings, like these demons or like these titans warring with this. Many people always ego-based, ego-centric happiness only. They're so fanatic in their ideas, in their views, in their idea of happiness also, their perception of happiness also. They are so fanatic, and they become so gross. That is what is called subhuman happiness. The warring groups, the warring communities, and the people, and all these things come under subhuman. And the animal happinesses, many animal happiness also they come under subhuman. They can't understand anything superior to that kind of situation that they are going through, either in the body or in their mind. If there is some dullness, it's okay. That very dullness itself is happiness. That way, the subhuman or these animals or these titans or these very dull or lethargic beings, they think, or very greed itself is okay. It's also happiness. The very jealousy itself is happiness. In that way, many people think, many these evil people or these demonic dull people, they think like that. Very delusion, very greed, very jealousy, very hatred itself. That itself is happiness. Many people, they take this entertainment business. They take sides, and based on some excitement of the mind, some ego of the mind, in politics and this entertainment and all, they take the side of one person or one party or one hero or one celebrity, and then whatever happiness he feels, they can relate themselves to it with their delusion, and that itself they think it is happiness. Actually, in a way, these things are like a bit subhuman. It won't come under even the human happiness also. This may happen even with the person who is enjoying the Brahmic happiness. Many Brahmas, after their punya is over, they fall into even the animal realms also. Once one Brahma, he falls into animal realm, he became a pig. This kind of this kind of incident, this kind of quotes are there, this kind of episodes are there in Buddha's instructions also, and you might have heard in some Hindu mythology also. After one of his avatar, Varaha avatar, Vishnu, he became a pig. He was a pig, and later also he was enjoying as a pig. Then Shiva has to come, and Shiva has to pierce him with his Trishula to make him realize that this is not you. This pig is not you. You are Vishnu. You have higher, refined happiness. You are enjoying. Only you are a divine. You are enjoying the divine happiness. Why you are stuck in this pig happiness, animal happiness? That way he has to pierce him. And the same thing in one encounter with one Brahma, Buddha used to narrate. Don't think this Brahma life is supreme. You may fall down and you may become a pig. And once one Brahma, he became a pig. And he was enjoying that very pig life itself. Because the mind becomes so deluded, so unconscious, so deluded. And for that mind, that very existence, that very situation itself is happiness. So, and later, of course, they realize the burden of that body, burden of that situation. And of course, they suffer. The animals or the warring individuals. So in that way, we are not talking or discussing about that subhuman happiness, but it is also there. So we are talking about this human happiness, where we look for this purpose, pleasure, passion, and the divine happiness, where we look for transcending the body and mind, make it more sublime, make it more light. By, of course, by doing some very universal, very wholesome, very holistic actions like meritorious actions, like practicing Shila, practicing Dana, and all these things, Seva, Acharya, correctly relating oneself to the higher knowledge, higher wisdom, higher wise people, higher teachers. That is what is the divine happiness. And then meditative happiness, jhanic happiness. That is what is the Brahmic happiness. And then the Nibbanic happiness is completely transcend, getting the insights about body and mind and transcending the body and mind. That is what is called insight, knowledge happiness, or insight happiness that you achieve. And once you complete that insight happiness, then you achieve what is called the Nibbanic happiness, absolute liberation, absolute emancipation, absolute freedom. So in that way, so when you enter into this domain of right view, then you can correctly comprehend the human happiness, the Brahmic happiness, and the divine happiness, and Nibbanic happiness. Slowly, steadily, you can progress in this happiness. I don't say, or even nobody said, no Buddha said, no disciple of Buddha said that one should always work for Nibbanic happiness by giving up. But that is extreme. That's what even Buddha did, and he realized that is very, very foolish. That's why he started eating and taking care of his body also. So one should understand, one should realize where he is, at what stage he is in this complete gradation, in this complete range of happiness. And accordingly, with middle path, step by step, one should progress in this happiness quotient or happiness journey. So, though Buddha talks about from this subhuman, human, and up to Nibbanic happiness, but his very mission of the life is to make people to understand the Nibbanic happiness, work for it, and achieve it, the Nibbanic happiness. Once the chief disciple of Buddha, Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta, he helped one Brahmin disciple to achieve the Brahma realm. But Buddha became unhappy with that, and he actually rebuked Sariputta. He had the ability to achieve the Nibbanic happiness. Why did you teach him only this Brahmic happiness, and to help him to achieve only the Brahmic happiness? You made a mistake. You would have helped him to achieve the Nibbanic happiness. In that way, he rebuked Sariputta. Because Buddha knew Nibbanic happiness is the one, is the mission of Buddha and his disciples to teach and help people to achieve that. And of course, he knew the limitations of other people, their minds that could read. And as in the case of this farmer, instead of teaching anything, he just fed him with some food. So in that way, having this complete range of happinesses is very, very crucial. That's what I highlight in all my Dhamma talks. All of you should know this complete range of happiness. Then there is no danger, then there is no risk of falling into any kind of the inferior happinesses or in any kind of confusion about happiness. And even in this progressive development in the happiness, from the human happiness to divine happiness, or even in the divine happiness, there are essential happiness also. In the lower divine realms, there are 6 divine realms. The lower divine realms, even the intercourse, the body, essential happiness is also there. Just like in the human realm. But once you go through, the bodily essential happiness becomes so refined. The body is also so refined, and the bodily essential happiness also becomes so refined. The higher levels of divine realms, like Paranimita, Vasavati, Nimanarati, and all, it's only very, very subtle touch. There are, of course, the gender also, male and female devas also. The foods also becomes very, very sensitive when you progressively go from the lower divine realms to higher divine realms. The lower divine realms, there will be grass food. The grass tastes, the grass smells, they enjoy. But once you progress to higher levels of divine realms, there the foods become very, very subtle. They're called divine foods, and they become very subtle. The smells, the tastes, the sounds, everything becomes subtle because the body and the mind become subtle in this progressive, development of the divine realms, progress in these divine realms. In the lower realms, there is like intercourse, there is like copulation, penetration, and all, but in the higher levels, it's only touch, only subtle touch. So in that way, in the divine realms, there is genders, there is, but progressively the refinement is there, the sensitivity is there in the sensual pleasures. In the Brahmic realms, the three senses they become so sensitive and they completely disappear, and all that energy of these three senses they come to other three senses. In the Brahmic realms, the eye sense, the hearing sense, the ear sense, and the mind sense become so refined. The other three gross senses they completely become so refined and they completely disappear also after becoming so refined. Your eating, your taste sense, your no smelling sense, and the body sense, the touch sense, they become so refined, and they don't feel see the need of it. They transcend it, and only three senses will work among these Brahma beings, and they become so powerful. They can see across the world systems. They can hear across the world systems. Their minds can traverse across the world system, Brahmic realms. Because all the power of the senses have come to the mind, and to the ear sense, and to the hearing ear, and this eye sense, hearing and seeing. And that is a superior happiness. Simply stuck in these lower senses, gross senses of touch sense, of nose sense, and smell sense. And of course, as human beings, we should not completely destroy it. One should enjoy it, one should go through it, one should transcend it, one should understand it. One should understand it is very, very important. And then if you correctly work on it, then you can transcend it also, and you become a Brahma being also, and you start enjoying the Brahmic happiness, which is much more subtler, which is superior than the sensual happiness of the divine beings also. And in the Arupa Brahma realms, even this, the happiness of the eye sense and the ear sense, those two sense happiness also, one can transcend in what is called the Arupa Brahma planes, where only mind is there. Mind becomes so powerful, so vast, so sensitive, because all the sensitivity of the senses of the body has come to the mind only. In this process of sensitizing the body, this process of sensitizing the mind, thereby sensitizing the body, one has transcended the body and the body senses, and that is what is the stage of Arupa Brahma. And there they enjoy this Arupa Brahma happiness. Of course, Arupa Brahma we combined and we call it as Brahmic happiness. And Nibbanic happiness is even transcending this mind sense happiness, the only mind sense happiness of the Arupa Brahmas also. Transcend that very mind sense happiness, because there also there is subtle suffering is there. Though it is far superior than the bodily sense happiness, but still there is some suffering there. So that also, if you transcend, then you achieve what is called the Nibbanic happiness, where you need not look back. In all other happiness, whether it is Brahmic or Arupa Brahmic or in divine or in the human happiness, there is always a risk of rotating or going up and down. As I was telling you, a Brahma can become a pig, can fall into a subhuman happiness. from Brahmic happiness, he can fall into the subhuman happiness. And of course, even though he is enjoying the Brahmic happiness, there is a subtle body and subtle mind which creates some oppression, which creates some burden, which creates some suffering. And that Buddhas, they don't like it. They want themselves and other people to come out of all that kind of even that subtle suffering also. And of course, one should understand this thoroughly. One should not completely get inspired and motivated and in overnight I should achieve Nibbanic happiness. That is extreme. That becomes desire, that becomes tanaha, and that again leads to a lot of suffering. So all these things one should understand, and one should bring in what is called this mindfulness into picture to progress in this. You want to achieve the human happiness, you should have this right view and the mindfulness and all the things that you have learned in the meditation courses. You want to achieve the human happiness. Should if you have the awareness faculty, very developed awareness faculty, then you can achieve all the human happiness. Then you can enjoy the human happiness more authoritatively. If you have more wholesome feelings like metta, karuna, mudita, upekka, you can enjoy the human happiness more authoritatively. If you have this siddhipada in your mind, those chetasikas are there in your mind, like your chanda, virya, chitta, vimamsa, then you can enjoy human happiness more authoritatively. And of course, all these things that I have taught and you have learned in these meditation courses will help you to enjoy human happiness, not just human happiness, even the divine happiness, Brahmic happiness, and to achieve Nibbanic happiness also. These things are so, comprehensive, so perfect. That's why one should practice, one should understand, one should learn, one should participate in all these right view meditation courses, the right perceptions, anicca, asubha, asukha, anatta. These things, if you correctly comprehend and correctly practice in your life, you can enjoy the human happiness, you can enjoy the divine happiness, Brahmic happiness, and Nibbanic happiness also, step by step, of course. That way, this correct comprehension, understanding, practice of these different techniques for these four faculties of the mind is crucial, is the key. Not just learning about these four kinds of happiness, even to progressively go forward in these different four kinds of happiness. And if you are in human happiness itself, thoroughly achieving and enjoying the human happiness itself, these different kinds of meditation techniques that are being taught or that you have learned should practice again and again. Of course, we can attend practice sessions and practice again. We can attend the courses again and practice again. And you can encourage other people that by very encouraging other people and asking them, enrolling them, it gives higher motivation, higher inspiration, higher commitment, higher faith to learn these things, practice these things, progress in these different levels of happiness. And enjoying that very particular happiness also, like your human happiness. These things are the key. These things are the basic. That clarity you should get. Based on that, you should plunge into this. So, this mindfulness and this right view meditations again is the key to enjoy all these four kinds of happiness. This human happiness, divine happiness, Brahmic happiness, and Nibbanic happiness. That is the point that I want to highlight here. And again, from next month, next fortnight, I can say, from October 1st, we have series of courses, L1 to L4, or actually now I'm planning to make this L1 to L4 into only 2 courses. L1, L2 combined is the basic course. L3, L4 combined is the advanced course. So that's what is the change that we are going to have. So the basic course is for 8 days. The advanced course is for again 8 days. Instead of having 4 courses and in 3 days practice or gap between these courses. So this may not be very suitable for majority of the people. That's why I have combined L1, L2 into basic course, L3, L4 into advanced course, and there will be only 2 courses with some 2-3 days gap in between. Then it will be like in 2 courses, you are going to learn all the techniques about these 4 faculties of the mind and how to refine them and how to derive the different kinds of happiness. This very act of refining the mind, act of purifying these 4 faculties of the mind. That's what I wanted to introduce this time, these October courses. So all of you work on this. Authoritatively, I'm telling you, I'm instructing you, I'm recommending you, this is the best happiness. Because to achieve all these 4 kinds of happiness, mindfulness and this understanding of the 4 faculties of the mind and working on purifying the 4 faculties of the mind is the only way. There is no other way. As supportive things, the other meritorious actions and all will come. And by encouraging other people and working on this, serving this, you are fulfilling those meritorious actions also in a very authoritative way, in a very holistic way again. Because of that reason, take this as an opportunity and work enthusiastically. Give your preference, priority to this. This will help you in all possible ways to achieve the best happiness. Even though you are stuck in human happiness, you will get the human happiness. If you are stuck in the divine happiness, you will get the divine happiness to some extent if you are working on it. The same way the remaining happiness comes. So that is the power of these things. This course, these courses, I am absolutely confident. I am absolutely clear in this. So if you can understand this, if you can feel it, if you can comprehend this, then you definitely will work for this. So I told our organizers also, without one particular target of what I have told, I will not take will not conduct the course. Because I want all of you to work on this, to develop this Vayavacha for me. Simply doing some kind of half-heartedness, over smartness, with some confusion, with some doubt, all that nonsense I don't want. If you don't have 100%, don't work. No need of all these things. The world is not yet ready. I have so many things to do here. With complete clarity, with complete commitment, if you work and if you organize, you do it. Otherwise, don't do it. All the coordinators, all the organizers. Keep target for each one of you and you work on it. And if you show your will and show your commitment to this, then only we will take up this because you are doing the best in the world. That clarity, if you don't have, if you don't commit yourself, then you are not achieving these kinds of 4 kinds of right view happiness. Then you are not helping others also to achieve these 4 kinds of right happiness. This is the opportunity for all of you to achieve this and to help others to achieve this. So I think these 4 kinds of happiness, I think you are clear how beautifully it is progressive and compared to other versions of other people's happiness, kinds of happiness they define, the classification of happiness that they define, how superior it is, how clear it is, how transcending it is, how complete it is. You just see. Of course, 99.99% of the people, they're stuck in all kinds of different unrealistic or foolish kinds of happiness. At least even some of you, even 10-15 of you, if correctly comprehend it, it will be very, very satisfying. It will be enough for me to correctly understand, correctly practice, correctly work on this. Then we can definitely progress in this journey of happiness, which can be classified as human happiness, divine happiness, Brahmic happiness, and Nibbanic happiness. By achieving this, by understanding, progressing in this right view, you can progress in this happiness also, 4 kinds of happiness also. Okay, so with this, we'll conclude. If there are some questions, you send those questions in this chat box. Otherwise, we will conclude with one small chant. If no questions, then we will conclude with one small chant. I'm not happy with the coordinator's commitment. Of course, I was also sick from past 1 month, but at that time, the coordinator should be more active, more committed. We not completely depend on me. When you have imbibed, if you have imbibed the spirit of this right view, then you do not wait for me. You do not depend on me also. You can enthusiastically work for this cause of right view. Is it not? So work on this and let us see how the things will go. So if no questions, then we'll conclude with one small chant. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalam rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada swati bhavantu te sukhi bhave yannidhukko ahang nicca ahang viya ida chame sukhi hontu majjata chatavedinu imami gammante dhamme tatta hontu sukhi sada tato parancarajyesu chakkavale sujantano sadhu 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 sukhi hontu. May all of you be happy, healthy and peaceful. May all beings also be happy, healthy and peaceful. Sukhi hontu.